Okay, so welcome to the deep dive. Today we are we're diving into uh, this idea of stopping translation, and like starting to think in English.
Yeah.
And you sent me this episode of English Unlocked
Right.
called "How to Stop Translating in Your Head: A Crucial Step to Thinking in English Fluently."
Yeah.
And for anyone listening who wants to gain fluency in English,
Mm-hmm.
like this is for you because our goal with this deep dive is to take the best techniques
Yeah.
from that episode and give you like real things you can do to
Yeah.
start thinking in English.
Right. Because, it's really not just about learning more words, right?
Mhm.
Or nailing all the grammar rules.
Right.
It's about changing the way your brain works with English.
Yeah.
And that episode really gets into why we do that translation thing.
Yeah.
And more importantly, it gives us some good ways to move past it.
Yeah. So like why is our brain
Right.
so insistent on translating? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's like it just defaults
Yeah.
to its native language.
Exactly.
Right.
It's like the strongest setting, right?
Right.
So at first, your brain is going to take like the easiest path,
Right.
which is to understand new information
Yeah.
through your first language.
Right.
And the podcast episode also points out something really common,
Yeah.
just not being around English enough, in your daily life.
Right.
So if you're not immersed in it,
Right.
your brain doesn't get those chances
Yeah.
to make those direct connections in English.
Yeah. And I think for a lot of people,
Yeah.
and even myself included, when I've tried to learn other languages,
Yeah.
it's this fear of making mistakes.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
like you want to get it perfect in your head,
Yeah. Yeah.
in your native language,
Right.
before you even like dare speak it in English.
Yeah.
So you just automatically go into this translation mode.
Exactly.
It's like you're building this bridge
Yeah.
before you even lay the foundation in English.
That's a great analogy. Yeah. And the host of that episode made a really interesting point. When you think about fluent English speakers, right?
Yeah.
They're not translating in their heads.
Right.
The thought just pops up in English
Right.
and they just say it.
Yeah.
That's that fluency level we all want. That like instant connection
Yeah.
between thought and speaking in English.
Right.
And that's what we want to help you with in this deep dive.
Yeah. Okay. So the big question is how?
Right.
How do you start doing that?
Exactly.
How do you start thinking in English?
Right.
And the episode gave us 5 techniques
It did.
that seem promising. And the first one was start simple.
Yes. And this is such a good place to start.
Okay.
The idea is to really make an effort
Mhm.
to make basic English sentences
Yeah.
instead of trying to have these big complex thoughts
Right.
in your native language
Oh,
and
yeah.
then trying to translate all those tiny details.
Yeah.
Like learn to walk before you run in English,
Right.
right?
Yeah. And the example they gave in the podcast
Yeah.
is so clear. It was like, instead of thinking "Dengo hombre,"
Right.
if you're a Spanish speaker,
Right.
and then translating that to "I am hungry,"
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
you just train yourself to think "I'm hungry"
You're right. I'm hungry.
directly.
Exactly. And it might sound super simple,
Right.
but practicing this with little everyday phrases
Yeah.
that you already know
Yeah.
can really start to change the way your brain works.
Yeah. Why is that? Why is it so impactful?
Because you're building those initial connections in English,
Right.
by focusing on these basic phrases.
Yeah.
You're teaching your brain to go straight to the English
Mhm.
without needing your native language.
Right.
Like learning a musical instrument,
Right.
right? You start with scales and chords
Right.
before you play a whole symphony.
Right.
So try it out today,
Yeah.
with those basic greetings and needs and
Yeah.
things you notice around you.
Oh, wait. So the second technique is narrate your day in English.
Yeah.
And this is like making a habit of describing your surroundings
Mm-hmm.
and what you're doing
Yeah.
in English like all day long.
Exactly. And this is how you start to actually live
Yeah.
with English in your head.
Right.
And the English Unlocked episode gave us these great examples like, I am brushing my teeth.
Right.
The weather is nice today.
Yeah.
I mean, these are simple things.
Right.
But by saying them in English in your mind,
Yeah.
you're always making that link between the thought and the English words.
Like you're immersing yourself.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. It's like internal immersion.
Yeah. So it's like being the narrator of your own life,
Right.
but in English.
Exactly.
So you're making coffee in the morning,
Right.
and you're not just doing it.
Yeah.
You're thinking, I am pouring hot water.
Oh, right.
The coffee smells good.
Exactly.
Do you think that would help with like remembering words?
Yeah.
Because when you're doing this, you're basically asking your brain,
Right.
okay, what's the English word for this?
Right.
So you're building your vocabulary,
Yeah.
and it makes it easier to remember words
Yeah.
in actual conversations.
Right.
So yeah, I'd really recommend trying it out
Yeah.
during your next, daily routine.
Right.
Even if it feels a little weird at first.
Yeah.
You might be surprised how quickly it becomes automatic.
So the third technique is build word associations.
Yeah.
And this is more than just memorizing translations. It's like connecting English words.
Yeah.
Directly to like pictures or feelings or even sounds.
Exactly. It's about understanding the English word on its own.
Yeah. Right.
Not just as a translation of something else.
Yeah.
And the example they used in the episode was dog.
Right.
So instead of thinking of the word for dog in your language and then trying to remember the English word, you just picture a dog in your mind.
Yeah. You know the one that barks and wags its tail?
Yeah.
Maybe even licks your face.
Right.
That way you're going straight to the English word.
Yeah.
Without that extra step of translation.
Yeah. So you're creating a stronger, like a stronger connection in your brain.
It's like a well-worn path, right?
Right.
Easier to travel than making a new one every time.
Right. So it's like you're connecting dog to the actual picture.
Exactly.
And not to the word dog.
Right.
In your native language.
Yeah. So you're skipping that step.
Okay. So for the listener.
Yeah.
Maybe try this right now.
Okay.
Like think of a simple word. Like window or tree.
Okay.
And don't think of the translation.
Right.
Just picture it.
Yeah, just see it in your mind.
Yeah.
And this helps you learn vocabulary
Yeah.
in a much deeper way. You know,
Right.
It's not just a label anymore. It's the actual concept.
Okay. So technique number 4
Yeah.
is embrace imperfect speaking.
Yes.
And this gets to like that fear of making mistakes.
It does.
And the episode really highlighted
Yeah.
that you shouldn't let that stop you from speaking.
Exactly.
And push you back into translating.
Because the host made a great point.
Yeah.
Which is that native speakers can usually understand you.
Right.
Even if your grammar isn't perfect
Right.
or your pronunciation isn't great.
Yeah.
The goal is to communicate, right?
Right.
So worrying too much about being perfect can actually slow you down.
Right.
Because you start overthinking and translating.
So it's like prioritizing getting your thought out there.
Exactly.
Even if it's not perfect grammatically.
Right.
Don't let that little editor in your brain take over and tell you to translate first.
Right.
And the more you speak, even with mistakes,
the
more your brain gets used to thinking in English.
It's true. And I remember
Yeah.
when I was first learning a new language,
Yeah.
I was so worried about my pronunciation.
Right.
I would just freeze up.
Right.
But I had to like force myself to speak, knowing I'd make mistakes.
Right.
And eventually it got easier. And I
Yeah.
started thinking in that language more.
So it's about creating like a positive feedback loop.
It is, you know,
Yeah.
the more you speak.
The more you speak.
Yeah, the more your brain will just naturally
Right.
find the right words and grammar.
Right.
And you'll rely less on translation.
Okay, so the last technique from the episode
Yeah.
is immerse yourself in an English environment.
Yeah.
And this doesn't mean like moving to another country.
Right.
It just means like making little changes
Yeah, little tweaks.
in your everyday life
Yeah,
to
exactly.
make English more present.
Right. So the episode gave some really concrete example,
Yeah.
like changing your phone's language to English.
Right.
That way you're using English all the time.
Right. Even for like simple stuff.
Yeah, and watching English TV shows
Yeah.
without subtitles.
Yeah.
Even if you don't understand everything at first.
Right.
It helps your brain process English directly.
Yeah.
And then listening to podcasts.
Yeah.
And trying to repeat the sentences you hear.
Yeah.
That's a great way to learn the rhythm of the language. And it's all about making these small changes
Yeah.
that add up to a big difference in how your brain thinks in English.
And even like reading the news in English.
Right.
Or scrolling through social media in English.
Exactly.
Just little things
It all adds up.
can help.
Yeah.
So the English Unlocked episode also had this quick thinking challenge.
Right.
But we obviously can't do that here.
Yeah.
But the idea behind it is super important.
It is.
So basically
Yeah.
the host would say a word
Right.
like coffee or rain or travel.
Yeah. Or friend or music.
And the listeners had to quickly make a sentence
Right.
in English
Yeah. Without translating.
with that word.
Exactly. It was all about reacting quickly.
Right.
And not having time to translate.
So we can't do that here. But you could do this yourself.
You can Yeah.
Make a list of words, maybe words you're learning.
Mm-hmm.
Or just look around you
Right.
and pick a random object
Yeah.
and see if you can instantly make a sentence
Make a sentence.
about it in English.
That's a great way to practice,
Yeah.
you know?
And this will really strengthen that
Yeah.
English thinking pathway.
It will, because you're training your brain
Yeah.
to use English on the spot
Quietly.
without that translation step.
So to sum it all up, the main idea from that episode
Yeah.
is that doing these 5 things
Right.
consistently
Mm-hmm.
is the key
Yes.
to moving from translating
Right.
to thinking in English.
And they're not just random tips, right? They
Yeah.
all work together
Right.
to help you reach that automatic level.
And it's not like you flip a switch and you're done.
Exactly.
It's a journey, right?
It's a process.
You have to put in the effort.
Yeah, consistent effort.
And slowly
Yeah.
integrate these techniques
Mm-hmm.
into your learning.
And you'll start noticing
Yeah.
you're thinking in English more and more.
Yeah. And the most important thing is to start now.
Yes. Don't wait.
You know?
Yeah.
Don't wait for the perfect moment.
Just start.
Just do it.
Yeah, start small
Yeah.
and build from there.
Think about all the energy you're using
Yeah.
to translate. And imagine how much better you could be
Exactly.
if you could just use that energy
Yeah.
to think in English.
It would free up so much space in your mind.
Yeah. So for our listener,
Yeah.
here's a final question for you to think about.
Okay.
What's one area you're going to focus on first?
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Yeah.
will it be narrating your day
Yeah.
or making word associations?
Yeah.
You know,
Those are great places to start.
take some time to think about it
Mm-hmm.
and then take that first step.
Exactly.
You know, just start.
That's the key.
Okay.